Malik Turner had walked through Maplewood Plaza hundreds of times, but today felt different. The place always had a shine to its bright store windows, polished floors that reflected the soft overhead lights, clean air filled with quiet music. Everything looked peaceful, calm, perfect. But Malik knew that underneath all that brightness, there was something else. Something you couldn't point to, but you felt. The kind of feeling that made you straighten your back, keep your hands visible, walk slower, breathe quietly. The kind of feeling that told people like him, be careful. They're watching. He held his backpack with one hand and checked his phone with the other. Mom's birthday tomorrow. He smiled softly. He'd saved for months working at the grocery store after school, mowing lawns on weekends, flipping items online. Every single dollar went into that backpack because he wanted to surprise her with something she never bought for herself. A real gift from a real luxury store. He walked toward Urban Lane, the trendy fashion boutique everyone talked about. Clean black walls, silver lettering, expensive coats displayed like museum pieces. He had dreamed of shopping here, not for himself, but for his mother. She spent her whole life giving to him. This time he wanted to give something back. As soon as he opened the door, the music shifted. Or maybe it was the air. Malik stepped inside, and the conversations near the counter dropped. Two employees glanced at him, then at each other. A woman in a beige blazer leaned toward the cashier. "Watch him," she whispered, not quietly enough. Kids like that never buy anything. Malik pretended not to hear. He had heard worse. He walked toward the jackets, his heartbeat steady. He scanned the shelves, looking for the one he had seen online soft brown leather, hand-stitched detailing, perfect for his mom's style. He whispered to himself, "Come on. Please still be here." Behind him, Victoria Hale, the store manager, folded her arms tightly across her chest and narrowed her eyes. She was known for her strict standards, but everyone in the plaza knew her standards somehow always applied more to black customers than anyone else. Jenna, the cashier, watched Malik with a different expression, worried, sympathetic. She'd worked under Victoria long enough to know what was about to happen. She chewed her lip nervously. Malik finally found the jacket. He lifted it gently, brushing his fingers across the lining. "Mom would love this," he whispered, smiling to himself. That was all it took. Victoria stormed across the floor, heels clicking sharply like warning shots. She grabbed Malik's wrist before he even realized she was there. "Put it down," she snapped. Malik froze. "Ma'am, Don't even try it," she cut him off. "You're not stealing from us today." Jenna gasped softly behind the counter. A couple browsing perfume stopped and glanced over. A man near the fitting rooms muttered, "What now?" Malik swallowed hard. "I didn't steal anything. I'm just looking." Victoria leaned closer, her voice low but cruel. "And I said put it down. Or should I call security first?" Malik's hands trembled as he tried to explain. "I just wanted to check the size." "Oh, I'm sure," she said with a smirk. "You kids always come in here with the same story." He stepped back slightly, startled by the sudden hostility. I'm not stealing. I have money. I'm trying to buy this." Victoria laughed sharply. "You expect me to believe that?" Behind her, Jenna whispered, "Victoria, maybe we should stay out of this." Victoria snapped without looking back. Malik's chest tightened. He thought about walking out. He thought about calling his mom. But then he remembered why he was here. He remembered how many shifts he worked, how many nights he stayed up studying and working, how proud he wanted his mom to be. "I can pay for it," he said quietly. "I really can." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Then show me what's in your bag." Malik stiffened. "No, I didn't do anything wrong." She smirked. Then you won't mind if security takes a look. He exhaled shakily. The store was silent. People were staring, some curious, some uncomfortable, some eager for drama. Malik whispered, "I just wanted to buy a jacket." Victoria's voice boomed across the store. "Security. We have a situation." Malik closed his eyes. This was not how today was supposed to go. This was just the beginning. Officer Reynolds appeared in the doorway within seconds, his heavy boots echoing across the floor. He didn't walk, he marched, as if already prepared to arrest someone. Malik had seen him before, strolling the mall like he owned it, stopping teens who looked out of place. Today, his eyes locked onto Malik with the certainty of a man who had already made his judgment. "What's going on?" Reynolds demanded. Victoria pointed directly at Malik, as if identifying a dangerous criminal. "Caught him grabbing merchandise. Acting suspicious. Refusing to cooperate." Malik stepped back. "That's not true. I didn't take anything." Reynolds didn't even acknowledge his words. He walked straight up to Malik, towering over him. "Backpack," he said. "Hand it over." Malik hugged the strap tighter. "Why? I didn't steal anything." Reynolds scoffed. "Kid, don't start with me. Give me the bag." "I have money in there," Malik whispered. "Just money I saved." Victoria crossed her arms, smirking. "Oh, I'm sure you saved it." A couple nearby exchanged looks, one uncomfortable, one amused. Someone whispered, "This is why they have to watch these stores." Malik's throat tightened. "Please, don't do this. I didn't do anything wrong." Reynolds grabbed the backpack off his shoulder before Malik could finish. Malik stumbled forward, almost losing his footing. "Hey!" Jenna gasped from behind the counter. "He didn't do anything." Victoria spun around. "Jenna, enough. Do you want to keep your job?" Jenna's mouth closed, but her eyes stayed on Malik, filled with fear and anger. Reynolds unzipped the backpack aggressively, and then everything seemed to slow down. Thick stacks of cash slid out, scattering across the polished floor. A collective gasp filled the store. People craned their necks, leaning closer, whispering louder. Victoria's face lit up in triumph. Well, looks like we found something." Malik's heart dropped. "That's my money. I earned that. Please don't touch it." Reynolds held up a stack. "Where'd you get this, huh? Whose wallet did you take it from?" Malik shook his head rapidly. No, this is from my jobs. I've been working. Ask my boss. Ask my neighbors, please." Victoria spoke over him. "Most likely stolen. Probably hit someone's locker or bag." "It's not stolen." Malik's voice cracked. "I was going to buy something. I swear." The crowd gathered closer. "I knew he was trouble when he walked in," a woman muttered. "They always pretend to be innocent." Another whispered. Malik felt tears sting his eyes, not from guilt, but from humiliation so sharp it cut deeper than anything else. Reynolds pulled out Malik's ID, glanced at it, and scoffed. 17. "Should have known. I work 2 jobs, Malik insisted. "I can show you pay stubs." "I can," Reynolds interrupted. "Save it for someone who cares." Jenna took a step forward, voice trembling. "Officer, he's telling the truth. I saw him walk in. He didn't touch anything except that one jacket." Victoria snapped. "Jenna, if you say one more word." "No." Jenna's voice rose. "This is wrong." Reynolds ignored her completely. He grabbed Malik by the elbow. "Let's go. We'll talk in the back." Malik's knees weakened. "Please don't take me back there. I swear I didn't do anything." Victoria picked up the cash, holding it like evidence. "We'll let the police decide what's real." Malik felt like the walls were closing in. The store felt smaller, the air heavier. Every pair of eyes stabbed into him. He heard a teenager snicker. Maybe he thought he'd get away with it. An older man shook his head. Kids like this ruin everything. Malik whispered, "Why are you doing this?" "I didn't steal anything." Reynolds didn't answer. He dragged Malik through the store as people parted like he was contagious. Malik's sneakers slid across the floor as he tried to keep up, trembling. Jenna whispered after him, "I'm sorry." "I'm so sorry." But Victoria's voice was louder. "Let this be a lesson to you," she sneered. "Our store isn't a playground for shoplifters." Malik's chest squeezed painfully. He thought of his mother's smile. He thought of how excited he'd been for her gift. He thought of how proud she always told him she was. He felt none of that pride. Now, he felt small, invisible, wrongly labeled. Reynolds pushed him into the back office. A dim room with a metal table and cheap chairs. The smell of old paperwork filled the air. "Sit," Reynolds ordered. Malik sank into the chair. Head down, tears quietly sliding down his cheeks. "I didn't steal anything," he whispered again, soft. Broken, almost to himself. Outside the door, Victoria muttered, "Problem kids like him. Always the same story." They had decided who he was. Before he ever spoke, they saw a thief, not a son, not a hard worker, not a kid who saved every penny for his mother. Just a black teen in a HOODIE. To them. That was enough. Little did they know. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of something none of them expected. The back office felt colder than the rest of the store, like a place designed to break someone down before they even spoke. Malik sat hunched over the metal table, hands trembling in his lap as Reynolds paced near the door like a guard watching a criminal. Moments ago, Malik had walked into the mall, just like any other kid. Now he felt like he was trapped in a cage made of other people's assumptions. Reynolds finally stopped pacing and leaned over the table. "You gonna tell me the truth now?" Malik didn't look up. "I already did." Reynolds scoffed. "Yeah? Then help me understand why a teenager is carrying around hundreds of dollars in cash." Malik swallowed hard. "Because I worked for it. I've been saving for months. I do deliveries after school. I help at the mechanic shop on weekends. That money is for my mom." His voice cracked on the last word. Reynolds rolled his eyes. "Kid, I've heard every excuse. This one's new, though. Very creative." Malik's chest tightened. "It's not an excuse, right?" Reynolds smirked. "You expect me to believe you when my manager saw you stealing?" Malik finally lifted his head. His eyes were red, but steady. "She didn't see anything. She just saw me." Reynolds shrugged. "Sometimes that's enough." The words hit Malik like a punch. He looked away, staring at the wall as voices from outside drifted through the thin door. Victoria's voice, loud and proud. "I knew the second he walked in. Hoodie, backpack, looking around too much." Another voice said, "These kids always think they're clever." Another added, "Bet he's done this before." Each word chipped away at Malik's spirit, like they were carving a version of him they wanted to believe. He felt smaller and smaller, like he couldn't breathe. He tried to steady himself. He thought of his mother waking up early to work long shifts, packing his lunch, telling him, "Don't let the world decide who you are." But sitting here, surrounded by walls that held more suspicion than truth, those words felt far away. A knock hit the door lightly. It was Jenna. Reynolds opened it halfway. "What?" Jenna's face was pale with worry, her voice barely above a whisper. "Officer, could you check the camera footage before you go any further?" "He didn't do any," Reynolds cut her off. "Stay out of this. You're not the one in charge." She hesitated. I think you're making a mistake." Victoria's voice thundered behind her. "Jenna, get back to the register." Jenna flinched and backed away, but not before glancing at Malek with sad, apologetic eyes. Malek managed a tiny nod. It wasn't her fault. None of this was her fault. Reynolds shut the door and turned back. "All right, kid," he said. "Here's what's going to happen. We'll see if we can contact a parent. Until then, you sit tight." Malek whispered, "Please don't call my mom yet." "Why not?" Reynolds asked. Malek lowered his gaze. "Because she worries too much. And I didn't do anything wrong." Reynolds shrugged again, as if Malek's feelings were irrelevant. "Not up to you anymore." When the officer stepped outside to speak to Victoria, Malek let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. He buried his face in his hands. "How did I end up here?" he whispered to himself. He replayed the moment his backpack opened and the money spilled out, the gasps, the stares, the accusations. People didn't see months of saving. They didn't see late nights working. They didn't see a son trying to give his mother something special. They saw a thief, and nothing hurt more than knowing that if any other kid had dropped that same money, they would have been called responsible, hardworking, maybe even impressive. But for him, it was suspicious. The unfairness was suffocating. His thoughts spiraled deeper back to middle school when a teacher couldn't believe he wrote his own essay. Back to the time a store clerk followed him around while ignoring every other customer. Back to the neighbor who complained because Malek looked threatening, walking home with a backpack. He'd spent years trying to be polite, calm, respectful, hoping maybe people would see him differently. But here he was, alone in a room for a crime he didn't commit. A soft vibration in his pocket snapped him out of his thoughts. His phone. A text notification lit the screen. "Mom, how's the mall, baby? Everything okay?" Malek's throat tightened so hard it hurt. He wanted to tell her. He wanted to call her. But the thought of her rushing across the mall panicked. He couldn't do that to her. Not yet. He typed slowly, "Yeah, I'm okay," but he didn't hit send because it wasn't true. Before he could decide, the door suddenly opened halfway again, but this time, Reynolds didn't return. Someone else stepped in the doorway. It wasn't Victoria. It wasn't Jenna. It was a tall man in a tailored suit with sharp eyes and calm authority, a man Malek had never seen before. He looked at Malek, then at the scattered money still sitting on the table. Then back at Malek. "You don't deserve to be treated like this," the man said quietly. Malek blinked, confused. Who are you?" The man stepped closer. His voice dropped with a calm power that could silence a room. "Someone who's not going to let them get away with what they just did to you." Malek frowned. "Why would you help me?" The man's jaw tightened. "Because I've been where you are," he said. "And because they just messed with the wrong kid." Malek's breath caught. Something was about to change. Something big. And this, stranger whoever he was, felt like the spark. The man stepped fully inside the small office, closing the door behind him with a quiet click. Malek stared at him, unsure if he should feel hope or fear. The man's presence carried authority, not the loud, crushing kind that Reynolds used, but the steady, grounded kind that came from someone who had seen injustice before and refused to bow to it. "My name is Carter," the man said calmly. "Jonathan Carter." The name meant nothing to Malek yet, but the calm strength in his voice made Malek sit up straighter. Reynolds reappeared in the doorway, irritated. "Sir, you can't just walk in here." Jonathan didn't even look at him. "And you can't detain a minor without reviewing evidence." Yet here we are. Reynolds' face tightened. "This is store protocol." Jonathan took a step closer to Malek, placing a gentle hand on the back of the empty chair beside him. Protocol is not a substitute for profiling, he said. His voice didn't rise, but every word landed like a sharp tap on glass. Reynolds stiffened. Look, he was acting suspicious. The manager saw him. Jonathan cut in, his tone steady. The manager saw a black teenager holding a jacket. Reynolds had no response. Jonathan turned to Malik. Son, did you take anything from this store? Malik shook his head, voice soft but firm. No, I didn't take anything. Jonathan nodded once, as if that settled the matter. Then we have a problem, he said, turning back toward the doorway. Outside, Victoria's shrill voice floated through the hallway. I bet he stole that money. Kids like him don't carry cash unless it's trouble. Malik winced. Jonathan's jaw clenched. He turned to Malik again. Do you mind if I take your backpack to the front? I'm going to sort this out. His tone wasn't commanding. It was respectful. The kind Malik wasn't used to receiving from adults in authority. Malik hesitated. Yeah, that's fine. Jonathan picked up the backpack carefully, as if it were evidence of Malik's dignity rather than a crime. As he opened the office door, Victoria jumped back like she'd been caught listening. Oh, she stammered, trying to regain her confidence. Sir, this is a private matter. Store business. You shouldn't interfere. Jonathan raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Then perhaps you should show me the footage that proves your accusations. Victoria blinked. I didn't check the cameras yet. Jonathan nodded slowly. So you accused him without evidence? That's not. She stumbled over her words, frustration building. He had a bag full of cash. Obviously it's stolen. Jonathan stared at her. Because a black teen couldn't possibly earn his own money? Victoria flushed red. Don't twist my words. I'm not twisting anything, Jonathan said quietly. Your bias is doing all the twisting for you. A few shoppers paused near the entrance, drawn by the rising tension. Reynolds cleared his throat, trying to shift blame. It looked suspicious. The manager thought he was stealing. And you, Jonathan said, turning to him, are supposed to investigate before acting, not after. Reynolds stiffened. Jenna stepped forward, her voice shaking but determined. He didn't steal. I've been watching him since he walked in. He never took anything. Victoria spun toward her. Jenna, stay out of this. No, Jenna said, surprising even herself. This wasn't right. And you know it. A nearby customer stepped closer. She's telling the truth. I saw the whole thing too. Another man added, this kid didn't steal a thing. Victoria's face paled. The story was unraveling too fast for her to control. Jonathan looked at the growing crowd, then back at Malik, who was still standing near the office door silent, overwhelmed, but watching everything. Malik, Jonathan said gently, come here. Malik stepped out, unsure if he was walking toward salvation or more humiliation. Jonathan placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You deserve to be treated with respect, son. Today they tried to take that from you, and I won't let them. Victoria rolled her eyes. Who exactly do you think you are? Jonathan smiled for the first time, calm, controlled, powerful. The man you should have called before mistreating a customer, he replied. And why would I call you? She snapped. Jonathan let out a breath. Because, he said softly, I own this store. The world seemed to freeze. Jenna gasped. Reynolds blinked in shock. Victoria stumbled backward like the ground had dropped beneath her. You what? She whispered. Jonathan repeated calmly. I own Urban Lane, and Maplewood Plaza's flagship branch is my largest location. Malik's eyes widened. He'd just spent the last hour being accused like a criminal by people working for the man standing beside him. Victoria's voice cracked. I didn't know that. Jonathan nodded. No, you didn't bother to ask. You were too busy accusing a young man who did nothing wrong. He turned to Malik again. I'm sorry, son. This never should have happened. Malik swallowed hard. It's okay, he whispered. No, Jonathan said, voice firmer now. It's not. Victoria opened her mouth to argue again, but Jonathan raised one hand, calm, controlled, enough to silence her completely. We're not done, he said. But before anything else, Malik deserves justice. He looked around at the store, the staff, the watching customers. A storm was coming, and Malik was no longer standing alone. If you're ready, say, the entire store felt like it was holding its breath. Customers stopped browsing. Staff froze behind the counters. Even Officer Reynolds, who had been so confident minutes earlier, shifted uncomfortably as Jonathan Carter stepped forward with Malik's backpack in hand. Malik stood beside him, shoulders finally straightening, not because the fear was gone, but because someone powerful was standing with him instead of against him. Jonathan's voice cut through the silence. Before I decide what happens next, we're going to look at the security footage. Victoria swallowed. There's no need. Jonathan met her eyes. There is every need. Reynolds hurried to the monitor room, eager to shift attention off himself. Victoria followed behind him, the confidence she once carried now cracking like thin glass. Jonathan motioned for Malik to come with him, and Malik walked slowly, still shaken, but determined not to look away. They crowded around the screens. Reynolds clicked through the footage until today's timeline appeared. There, Jonathan said. Start from when Malik entered. Reynolds obeyed. The footage played. Malik walked into the store calmly, hands visible, head lowered politely as he passed customers. He picked up the jacket he wanted, checked the tag, and held it up to his chest to estimate the size. That was it. No stuffing merchandise, no suspicious moves, nothing. The truth was plain. And damning. Jonathan folded his arms. Show me the part where he acted suspicious. Victoria's lips trembled. She couldn't answer. Show me the part where he stole, Jonathan said again, voice controlled but razor sharp. Reynolds clicked through the footage with increasing nervousness. There was nothing. No theft, no crime. Malik had done absolutely nothing wrong. One customer near the doorway shouted, "Looks like the only suspicious behavior here is from your staff." A ripple of agreement spread through the store. Victoria's face turned red. I was just trying to protect the merchandise. Jonathan cut her off. You weren't protecting anything except your own bias. Her eyes widened, but he continued before she could twist another excuse. You humiliated a minor in front of the entire store. You grabbed his wrist. You accused him without evidence. And you allowed your assumptions about his race to define your actions. Victoria's voice cracked. I didn't mean... You meant every word, Jonathan replied quietly. That's the problem. He turned to Officer Reynolds. And you? Reynolds stiffened. I was just following the manager's instructions. You grabbed his property, Jonathan said. You ripped open his backpack. You handled his cash as if it were stolen. You didn't ask a single question before treating him like a criminal. Reynolds opened his mouth, but Jonathan didn't let him speak. You have no authority to detain kids based on stereotypes. A long, heavy silence followed, one that made everyone in the room shift uncomfortably. Malik lifted his head. I told you I didn't do anything, he said quietly. But you never listened. Victoria glanced away, unable to meet his eyes. Jonathan took a deep breath and placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. You saved up this money? He asked gently. Malik nodded. 2 jobs. Nights and weekends. I wanted to buy my mom something special. A soft gasp came from a woman standing in the doorway. Whispers spread through the store. The narrative they had carelessly believed was collapsing, shattered by simple truth. Jonathan turned toward Malik fully, voice warm but firm. That's something to be proud of. For the first time since entering the store, Malik felt a flicker of relief. Jonathan looked back to Victoria and Reynolds, his tone cold once more. I'm making this very clear. Effective immediately. Victoria flinched, anticipating the words. You are terminated. Her knees nearly gave out. What? What? Mr. Carter, please, I've worked here for 10 years. And in 10 years, Jonathan replied, you learned nothing about humility, fairness, or professionalism. This store does not tolerate discrimination. Reynolds swallowed hard, searching for an escape. And you, Jonathan said, pinning him with a stare. Your behavior today will be reported to mall administration and the security firm. Expect to be removed from duty by tonight. Reynolds dropped his eyes. The crowd murmured their approval, but Jonathan wasn't done. He turned back to Malik. Now, son, tell me exactly what you came here to buy. Malik looked at the floor, almost ashamed. The limited edition jacket, the blue one in the front. It's for my mom's birthday. Jonathan nodded. Good choice. He raised his voice slightly. Jenna, would you bring the jacket, please? Jenna hurried to the display and retrieved it, handing it gently to Malik like it was something sacred. It looks great, she whispered. Your mom will love it. Jonathan smiled. She'll love it even more because of what you endured to get it. Malik looked confused. But I don't want this to be because I caused trouble. No, Jonathan said softly. This isn't trouble. This is justice. He turned to the customers. This young man did everything right today. He behaved with respect, dignity, and patience while adults failed him. People nodded. Some even clapped quietly. Jonathan knelt slightly, so he was eye level with Malik. And because you handled all of this with more grace than most adults ever could, I'd like to offer you something. Malik blinked. What do you mean? Jonathan's smile widened. How would you like an internship with my company? Finance, entrepreneurship, leadership, real skills. You remind me of myself at your age. I see potential in you. Malik's breath caught in his chest. Me? He whispered. Yes, Jonathan said. You. Tears stung Malik's eyes, not from sadness, but from the shock of being seen, respected. Valued. Jonathan placed the jacket in Malik's hands. And the jacket, he added, is free. Malik stared at him, overwhelmed. Thank you. I don't even know what to say. You don't need to say anything right now, Jonathan said kindly. Just remember something. What? Malik whispered. Jonathan spoke softly, but the entire store heard him. You are not defined by their fear. You are defined by your future. Malik nodded, wiping his eyes, and for the first time that day, he felt powerful. The mall felt different when they walked out of that office. The air didn't seem as heavy, and the whispers that followed Malik weren't the same as before. They weren't full of suspicion anymore. They were full of shock, guilt, and something like respect. Jonathan walked beside him, not rushing, letting Malik breathe after everything. Jenna followed a few steps behind, still shaken but relieved. Do you have a ride home? Jonathan asked. Malik nodded. Yeah, my mom's at work. I usually take the bus. Jonathan thought for a moment. Do you mind if we call her instead? She deserves to hear this from you. And I'd like to speak with her too. Malik's stomach fluttered. She's going to freak out when she hears what happened. I'm sure she will, Jonathan said gently. But she's also going to be proud. They found a quiet bench just outside the store. Malik sat down and pulled out his phone, the jacket folded carefully in his lap. His hands were still trembling. He dialed his mom's number. She answered on the second ring. Hey, baby. Everything okay? Malik swallowed. Mom, can you talk for a second? Her voice turned serious. What's wrong? Where are you? I'm at the mall, he said. Something happened. But I'm okay. I promise. There was a pause. What happened? Malik glanced at Jonathan, who gave him a small nod, letting him lead. The store manager thought I was stealing, Malik said quietly. They called security. They grabbed my bag. Everyone was staring. On the other end, his mother inhaled sharply. They what? He rushed to add, but this man, Mr. Carter, he stepped in. He showed them the cameras. He owns the store, Mom, or like most of it. He fired the manager. And Malik's voice broke a little. He offered me an internship. There was silence. Then, very softly, his mother whispered, "Put him on the phone." Malik handed the phone to Jonathan with shaking fingers. "She wants to talk to you." Jonathan smiled and took it. "Mrs. Turner? This is Jonathan Carter." Her tone was cautious. "Mr. Carter, thank you for helping my son. I don't even know what to say." "You don't need to thank me," he said. "What happened to Malik should never have happened. I can't erase it, but I can make sure it's not the end of his story." She exhaled, a mix of anger and relief. "He's a good kid. He works so hard. I try my best to teach him to stay calm, to be respectful, but sometimes I worry it won't be enough." "I saw that today," Jonathan replied. "He handled everything with more dignity than most grown men I've met. I meant what I said. There's potential in him. I'd like to mentor him, if you're comfortable with that." "You really would?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Yes," Jonathan said simply. "I run a company that helps build young entrepreneurs. I think your son belongs in that room." There was a soft sniff on the other end. "You have no idea what that means to me?" "Yes," Jonathan said, glancing at Malik. "I think I do." He handed the phone back. "She wants to talk to you again." Malik pressed it to his ear. His mother's voice was thick with emotion. "You okay, baby?" "Yeah," he whispered. "I'm okay now. I'm proud of you," she said. "Not because some rich man noticed you. I'm proud because you stayed respectful when they didn't deserve it. That's your character. That's who you are." A tear rolled down his cheek. I thought maybe I really looked like a criminal to them." "You're not what they see," she replied. "You're who you choose to be. Don't ever let a stranger's fear tell you who you are." He wiped his face and smiled. "I love you, Mom. I love you more," she said. "We'll talk when I get home. For now, breathe, and wear that jacket proudly." After they hung up, Malik slid the phone back into his pocket. Jonathan sat beside him. "You know," he said, "this store almost collapsed once because people running it made bad decisions. It survived because someone stepped in and changed how things worked." Malik looked at him. "You?" Jonathan shrugged lightly. "I invested in this place years ago. Not just for profit. I wanted it to be an example of what a modern business could be: fair, welcoming, forward-thinking. Clearly, I have more work to do." Malik glanced back toward the entrance of Urban Lane. The sign above the glass doors looked different now. It wasn't just a store name. It was a place that had tried to break him and failed. "Do you really think I could work with you?" Malik asked quietly. "Like for real?" Jonathan smiled. "I don't offer mentorship just to sound nice in public. I mean every word. You've got discipline. You've got vision. You saved money, had a plan, and even in the worst moment, you didn't lose control. That's leadership." Malik's chest warmed. No one had ever described him like that. Jonathan stood up. "We'll set up a meeting with your mom. Go over details. I'll have my office call you this week. Fair? Yeah, Malik said, standing too. More than fair. They shook hands. As Jonathan walked away. A couple who had watched everything earlier approached. Hey, the woman said gently. We saw what they did to you. We're really sorry. The man nodded. We should have spoken up sooner. Malik swallowed, then gave a small nod. Thank you, he said. Next time, just don't stay quiet. For anyone. They nodded, the message landing deeper than any lecture. Later that evening, Malik stood in front of the mirror at home, wearing the jacket. It fit perfectly. He turned side to side, imagining his mom's face when she saw it. Imagining himself one day stepping into an office building with his own company's name on it. The memory of Victoria's voice. I've seen your type, still stung. The image of his money spilling onto the floor still flickered in his mind. But another image was stronger. Now, Jonathan saying, you are not defined by their fear. You are defined by your future. Malik touched the photo in his wallet, the one with his mother's note. You are more than what they call you. He smiled to himself. They thought I was here to take from them, he whispered. They had no idea I was meant to build more than they ever imagined. For the first time in a long time, the world still felt unfair. But it didn't feel unbeatable, not anymore.